So I think I know everyone who's here, but I'll introduce myself. I'm Teresa Christensen. I'm the Director of Academic Technology. I work for WITS. I'm also a faculty member and I'm the chair of the photo department. So I teach in photography and I'm offering 3 sessions this coming up weeks around Canvas. There's one on a Friday that's in person looking at just the grade book, hoping to troubleshoot with those of you who want to bring your laptops, but I can also record a session for those who can't make it, just to show you how the grade book works. And then there'll be one more session that's a lunchtime session around Google Assignments, which is an integrated tool that we have that can be kind of fun to try out. That'll be on Zoom as well. So I wanted to introduce Sarah Andyshak, who's here with us. She's been in some of our other trainings. Sarah, do you want to just give a little intro of yourself and what you're doing at Willamette?
Yeah, so I started at Willamette at the end of October. I am the new director in the Digital Learning Studio, and some of you heard my lighting is really messed up in my office, so that's why I look like this. Prior to coming to Willamette, I was an art history professor for 7 years, and I taught using Canvas. So if you have questions, we can definitely answer those questions.
And Sarah has set up an amazing LibGuide that has condensed a lot of information around Canvas, including recordings of trainings and guides. Sarah, if at some point you could put that in the chat, that would be great. I have linked it through that Canvas Google Doc guide for faculty, but that's a really great resource to look at. Okay, so with that, I'm going to share my screen. Hold on. There we go, this one. And please chime in if you have questions. Feel free to just speak up, or you can put something in the chat. I'm going to ask if Sarah can help monitor the chat a little bit. There's that link that she just put up there with the LibGuides. And so today we're going to be looking at how to set up rubrics for assessment, and then how to give feedback using those rubrics, and look at some of the feedback tools via the SpeedGrader tool that's in Canvas. So I'm going to just review really quickly how to set up an assignment, and then we'll get started with the rubrics. I don't know if any of you were able to attend Justine's sessions that she's had around assessment and rubrics that she's been offering. If you didn't get a chance to attend, I'm just going to point you towards the educators, what is this called? Educators Resources Canvas site. There was a recent email sent out, I think this morning, to remind faculty to join it if you haven't yet. But if you go into modules, and there are a lot of modules, and I kind of see more than you all do. I have all of the Canvas trainings here in a module called Canvas Trainings and Info. So you can always go there and see the most recent Canvas trainings. I have some older ones, like past ones from last year, and I'll put the ones from this term up there. But then if you keep scrolling down, inclusive pedagogy is a great module. And I think it's at the very bottom is the equitable assessment workshops that Justine led. So these are all of the resources, as well as some recordings that she did for those of you who couldn't attend in person. And there's so much here around how to make rubrics, the types of rubrics. So today I'm going to be teaching the technical aspect of how to make a rubric, the tools that Canvas offers. But Justine really had some rich advice and examples here that she pulled from. And I'll use one of the examples today around how to think about how rubrics can be applied in your curriculum and as a pedagogical tool, and also just why we assess. So if you have questions about that, I would go towards this module and sort of dig into all of this content that she so generously provided us. So this is a test site that I have loaded up with examples from past terms, as well as just a test module that we'll be working with today. So I'm going to go into the modules first, and I'm going to set up a new assignment. Let's see. Just going to see if this was one. Yes. Okay. So this is an assignment that I just started. I haven't done anything yet to it. so that we can test SpeedGrader and I can show you how to set up an assignment. So I'm going to click on edit. And as I think a lot of you know, when you're setting up an assignment, if you still need some review on setting up assignments, that was the last session I led. So you can go back and look at the recording from that. But you're going to give your assignment a name. You're going to give any kind of context for your students here. So you could upload an assignment PDF if you have one, or you could put all of the instructions here in this example. You can insert any type of media that might be relevant to the assignment. So let's say you want some images, some links, a video, a document. You can also use your embed tools. So this plugin tool will allow you to embed videos that you've uploaded into your My Media library, YouTube. We have Google Apps integration. If you want to just put a Google Doc straight into the assignment, anything. So the realm of possibilities is very wide here. So that's sort of where you describe what the assignment's going to be for your students. Down below, there's lots of choices to make. And the first one is how many points this assignment might be worth. Something to think about since we're making rubrics is that the points that the assignment is worth should be worth the total amount of points of the rubric. So you can always go back and change it after you make your rubric. I'll just start with 20. And I'll think about maybe 4 criteria that I'll divide into 5 points each or something. You can play around with it. If you don't want to work with points, you don't have to. You can say, this is not going to be graded. I'm not going to use the rubric for grading. Like, there's so many options. You can choose the assignment group it's going to go into, and I'll be reviewing that, I think, next week, or I could look at it again today. But you can set up ahead of time assignment groups, give them each different weights to match your syllabus. I'll just leave this in projects for now. These are all the assignment groups that I have set up. And you can choose to display the grade to students as either points, or I would recommend a letter grade. What it does is it translates those points. Let's say they got like 18 out of 20. That's a A-, I think. It'll translate it to a letter grade, which is kind of what they're used to seeing. So you could set it up as letter grade. You also have the option to say this is a not graded assignment, or I just want it to be complete or incomplete, like they either did it or they didn't. So there's a range of different grading options you can choose here. Let's stick with letter grades. You can see what that looks like. And I'm not going to change the grading scheme. Your other choices are, do you want your students to submit something? That would be online. And then often I choose just file uploads because that covers the widest range of possibilities. But maybe you are instead creating an assignment where you just want to be able to grade students on something that they're not submitting. Like maybe this is a way for you to grade their participation in class. You can say no submission. And then the student doesn't have to do anything. It's just up to you to grade them on whatever it is you're grading. You can still use a rubric for that. They'll get all the feedback. Maybe they're doing something in class on paper that you collect, like drawings that they're not actually digitizing. So that could be the on paper. There's also the external tool option, which gives you an option to link into other tools you might be using. I'm going to click online and choose file uploads. The last parts here are just around, so do you want your students to be able to submit several times? I recommend keeping this at unlimited. You could say limited, but sometimes I know students have trouble, like they'll upload and they'll forget that they meant to upload more than just one thing, or they upload the wrong assignment for the wrong class. So it's a kind gesture to leave it at unlimited, and you can always see everything they've uploaded. Plagiarism review is a tool where we have Turnitin integrated. It's a software that scans any writing for plagiarism, and it's a great tool. So that is there as an option if you want to turn it on for writing assignments. You can also make it a group assignment. You can assign peer reviews. I covered all this in the assignment tutorial, so I'm going kind of quickly there. You do want to make sure to set a due date. I'll go ahead and set this due date as next Monday at 5 p.m. And available means when can students see it? So you can hold it, you can make it not available until tomorrow if you don't want them to be able to start working on it yet. But if you want them to be able to start working on it right away, you might backdate it. Like I'll say, as of yesterday, they can see it. And how long is it available until is like how long until it won't accept any more submissions. So that's kind of up to faculty if you want to give it until, if you leave it empty, it'll just be until the end of term. They could always turn in late work. But if you're saying like, I really need this 2 weeks from now, I'm not going to accept anything later than that, then you could choose that. You can also choose to give students different due dates by saying add and assigning to, and you can choose a student, like I can say Tiara, her due date is going to be a little bit later. What was the due date? The 12th. Okay, so she has an extra week. And that's great for students who have accommodations. Other students won't see this. It will just be that student who sees it. So that's kind of a nice thing to be able to incorporate into your assignments. Any questions about setting up an assignment? All right, so I'm going to go ahead and hit save. We made this assignment. And once you've made an assignment, you'll see there's a plus rubric button on the bottom. So this is where we get into the rubrics now. It's kind of hidden, and for discussions and quizzes, it's extra hidden. You actually have to go up here to find the rubric. So you can go ahead and hit plus rubric. And this is where we get to build a rubric. This is the rubric tool. And there's a lot here. It's pretty flexible. So you can create a rubric completely from scratch, which means you are writing everything in right now. So let's say I'm going to make a rubric, and I'm actually going to pull from something that Justine linked to us. Well, if I can find it right now. Where is it? It's from U, Michigan. There it is, sample essay grading rubric. So it's a PDF. And you might like look online or ask colleagues, or maybe you have examples of rubrics you've used in the past that have the different criteria that you're evaluating for. So what is it that you're looking to provide feedback on that your students are working on in their assignments? So this is for an essay, right? And then each of these three are how you're evaluating it. If it's excellent work, this is what it is that you're looking for in it. If it's adequate, that's a description of what adequate work means, and this is a needs work. And that's just one example of a rubric. So if we're working with, like I took the thesis example, your criteria, you can hit this little edit button. This is where you describe your criteria. You can also add a longer description if you want. I don't think I need to for thesis. And then here you have a way to rate it. You can either give it points, or you can do like what this rubric was suggesting, excellent, adequate, needs work. So it's kind of up to you. You can add a range of points too. It can be 5, 0. It can be anything you want. It's completely open. So you can hit this little pencil sign, and here, instead of full marks, I'm going to call it excellent. I'm going to just follow that. And I'm copying and pasting. Here's the description. Excels by responding to the assignment with a clear argumentative thesis in the first paragraph that continues to be the focus of the paper. So that's an excellent thesis. Then I'm going to hit a plus sign here because I want to have 3 different ways of evaluating it. This rating title for 3 points is going to be adequate. And for adequate thesis, that's a student that's clearly stated an argumentative thesis that the paper basically focuses on. I'm going to update that. And then for this last rating, which would be 0, that's needs work. And here, maybe you give it 1 point. I don't know, it's kind of up to you. Thesis is implied or absent or is stated, but the paper doesn't connect back to it. So that needs work. And there you have your criteria that you've built. I've sort of translated this into a rubric. You can go ahead and then add more criteria, as many as you want. And the idea is that it totals up the total amount of points that the assignment's for, as I said before. So I would probably I'd hit criterion and add a few more. You can duplicate them too. If you have a really nice set of terms here that you want to keep duplicating, you can, or you can write it in, plug it in however you want. All the time you spend building these rubrics is valuable because you'll be able to reuse them. You can reuse them directly, or you can reuse them and edit them. Hold on 1 second. I'm gonna mute myself. My kid is here.
Hi, everybody. While Teresa's stepping away, I'm just gonna ad lib and see if anybody has any questions about any of this so far. I'm here to help if you do, and I'm sure she'll be back in a minute.
I am so sorry. My kid is homesick.
Oh, that's all good. I was just offering to take any questions, and I saw Marilyn unmute, or sorry, I saw Marilyn talk, but she didn't unmute. So Marilyn has
I have 2 questions in the chat.
Oh,
so
sorry.
you can I reorder the criteria? Is it possible to drag items? Let's see. Let's make another criteria here. So new criteria, and I'll call this, I have no idea what was the next one. Organization. And I'm pretty sure it's like, can you drag it around? I don't think you can, but I think you can reuse different ones.
Well, it's really a bother. You know, I think of new things and then I want to have them in numerical order. Like I want to have the things that are the most valuable at the top, like the biggest points. As I get to the bottom, they get a lot of little points for doing stuff right or wrong, but I just want to be able to move them around so that I can put them in that order. So
Yeah,
so when
trying, it doesn't look like you can.
But when you hit plus here, so it shows you all the other ones. So I could say, oh wait, I actually want thesis to be under here.
Yeah.
And then then I can delete it from up here. Does that make sense? So it's not a click and drag.
No. So where do you
but it remembers everything.
So I don't remember. How did you do it? So you add a new criteria.
So if you say plus criterion, it'll say, do you want to add one of the ones you already made? So I could choose one, and it'll just put it there, and then you can delete it from above. So you can reorder it. It's just not as intuitive as clicking and dragging. But yeah, I think that works pretty well.
Okay, thanks. And then my other
so ideally, what's your other question?
My other question was in the grading, like where they submit their stuff. Is the external URL, is that Google Drive? I can just put Google Drive in there. Oh, I see someone already answered that. Okay.
Yeah, you can. I've been testing them as you've been asking.
Oh, good. Thank you.
Okay. So this is how you sort of free write a rubric. And I would ideally make 4 different criteria, each worth 5 points if I want them to be equal, but they can be worth different points. It should all just add up to the number that you are grading with if you want to use it for grading. Something else is that you can say instead, there are all these checkboxes down here. So they give you a whole bunch of options. You can say, I'm just going to write free-form comments when I'm assessing students. So if you check that box, you can still have your different criteria, but instead of rating them, you will just be typing in, instead of having those like predetermined, this is what quantifies an excellent thesis and this is inadequate, you'll just give them written feedback on each of those criteria. So it kind of helps you, instead of having to give an overall comment grade for the assignment, you're breaking it up and giving little comments based on each different criteria of the assignment. It's a nice tool to use. So that's what that is. And I'll keep that checked so you can see in SpeedGrader what that looks like. You can remove points from the rubric. That's what this checkbox is. And what that does is it means your rubric is just a guide then at that point for assessment. it's not going to be this like nitty gritty point tally. So you'll still give an overall grade to the student, and the assignment can still be worth a set amount of points, and it'll be a letter grade. But by removing points from the rubric, you're not having to assign points to every single criteria that you are evaluating. Also, if this was an ungraded assignment and you just wanted to provide feedback, removing points from the rubric would be a great way to do that as well. Let's see, I think those were the two that I wanted to show you here. I'll keep that points, and I'm just going to add 2 more criteria. What should I use? Introduction. Here, I'll do new criteria, introduction, and I'll do one more. So we can just sort of see how this functions when we make it. I'm going to create the rubric, and you should always title your rubrics because that way you'll be able to find them. So I'll say essay. So this is a rubric I'm using for essays. Create rubric. And I'm going to show you what it looks like from the student's view. But before I do that, I want to show you one other thing. You can look for a rubric as well if you don't want to use this one by clicking on this little magnifying glass. So let's say you're starting with a rubric, you don't want to start from scratch, you want to reuse one you already have. If you hit this magnifying glass, it on the left side shows all of your different classes that you've used in the past. So you can say, oh yeah, I remember for that like thesis class, I had a special rubric I used, and you can search through them. And on everyone's template this semester, I set up 2 rubrics already that you can use. And I'll just show you because I have them in another tab. If you go to the rubric tool for your class, you can also see all of the rubrics that you've set up for that class. So I did set up 2 based on ones I've used. I do not know if they're good or not. It was just my best guess, but here's a template project rubric and here's a template reading response rubric. So if you click on this, you can see I sort of started out with a few different criteria. And I titled what each one was. So formal choices, I gave a little bit more description. And this is for photography work, just as context. So you all can take a moment to look at that. And you can click on edit rubric to use that as a starting point and change it for yourself. If this language or the criteria don't match, it's just a good starting place, I hoped. And here's a reading response rubric. And yes, so you can edit it. If you like your assignments to always be worth 100 points, you can change all the points to reflect that. Completely up to you, but those won't be there. They're part of the templates that got pushed to all of the classes. So you at least have something to start with. And you can find ones you've made before and reuse them and edit and tweak them. So that's what that magnifying glass does. It's pretty powerful. And that's why you want to invest time in using rubrics because they'll always be there. They'll follow you through your adventures with Canvas. And faculty can also share rubrics with each other. We can talk about department heads creating rubrics and templates that they push to all of their faculty. If you want everyone in the same department to be using the same sets of criteria, that would be a great thing for us all to work on together. So something to think about. Let's see. Okay, so let's see what this looks like when a student sees it. So I'm going to go into student view. And this is their assignment that they're going to see. Of course, usually it has a little bit more information than just this is where you give directions to students. It'll have like the actual assignment. And they see this rubric at the bottom. So it's a grid. And it'll show exactly, you know, all the ratings if you've set them up. Right now, this is blank because that's where I'm going to provide comments. They can start an assignment. And here they have options. Since I chose file submission to upload a file, they can also go into Google Drive. Oops, you know, they should use Google Drive 1.3 and it's not going to show because I'm a student, but they could select a file and submit a Google Doc. So that's how you can use Google Docs. If you want to click Google Docs, there's also Office 365 if anyone uses that. Let me upload a file. Canvas. So I'm going to submit that assignment. They can add another file. They can put as many as they want. They get that little explosion when they submit it. They have a new attempt because I allowed them to have unlimited attempts. And then I'm going to leave the student view so I can show you what it looks like from the faculty perspective. So,
can I interject
yeah.
a question? Is the Google and Google Drive, the second version there, are those pre-loaded, or is that something I'll have to make sure I set up so that they have access to it?
It's just part of what's on Canvas right now.
Excellent, thank you.
Yep, so everyone should see it on all their sites. And the Google assignment tool that I'm having like a training for at the end of February is a little bit more complex. That it's not a part of that. That's just a way that they can like link a Google Doc for you to see. But the Google assignment tool, you'll see if you attend that, it has a little bit more. It's a way that you can like create an assignment using Google, and then the student turns in a Google Doc, but you can stop them from editing it after the due date. Yeah. But you can give live feedback, but then they can't change it. So it has some really cool like nuances built into it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so let's see. Oh yeah, so your student submitted. You have 0 out of 1 submissions graded. This is what you'll see. Also on your homepage for your course site, you'll have a to-do list as a faculty member. So as soon as students start turning in homework, you're going to get these little red dots that tell you, this is the thing we just submitted from the student, the test student file. There's one thing you need to grade. I also have another thing set up where last night I uploaded 5 pretend people's homework. So we'll look at that too. But I'm going to go into this so you can see this rubric really quickly. When you click on that, it goes straight into SpeedGrader. You can also get there by going to the assignment itself and then clicking on SpeedGrader here. The SpeedGrader is how you give feedback on assignments. So this is that test homework that I just uploaded as the test student. And you can see that this is the doc that they uploaded. This is the file here if you ever need to download it. It gives a word count, which is really cool, of the document. And then this is the assessment, excuse me, section. If you want to use the rubric, you have to click this view rubric. So this is the first thing I just wanted to show you since we looked at that. And this is what it will look like on your end when you choose that option to write freeform comments instead of having those different ways to assess like excellent, adequate, needs work. So here, organization, you can write a comment for the student. You know, and then you can give them points. So the comment sort of explains why you're assigning that many points. And as you go through, give them 5 for that to, you know, it'll tally them up down here. You can hit save, and then you can choose to use those 15 points, or you can, if you need to take some points off, you can always skew it up here. And it translates it to a letter grade. So 15 out of 20 is a C. This is a box down here where you can add more robust commenting, sort of holistic commenting on the whole assignment. You can write things in here. You can also, there is an attach button for file attachments. There is a media button where you can actually just record yourself either talking or, you know, using your webcam. So you can give video feedback. You can also upload media, like let's say you have a video you want to share with them to watch or something that's pre-recorded. That's really cool. And then there's just a speech to text feature too that you can record and it'll type it out for you if you're used to using that type of thing. Any questions on this side of the like assessment section of SpeedGrader and looking at the rubric? I'll show it to you again in a few more contexts as well.
I have a
Okay.
question.
Yeah.
If you don't choose the like there's a way to do overall commenting and not having to comment on each criteria, right?
Yes, so this is a rubric where we actually chose, if I go to the rubric, we chose this, I'll write freeform comments when assessing students. If I uncheck that, then it has this. Let's see if it'll update. I wonder if it's smart enough to do this. I don't think it's going to change it here, actually. It got a little confused, but I'll show you another example. Let's see. I'm going to show you our other homework we have to do. So I'm going to go to home. I had a reading response set up. Takes me to the SpeedGrader, but I'll look at the assignment by clicking on reading a response up here. So this takes me to the assignment that I set up. So this is a actual assignment I've given students where I have them read this PDF here, and then they have to choose one of the following 2 questions and write a 250-word response to it. It says down here what it's due. And then this is the criteria I used, which is one of the example ones in your template. So it has different ratings, and you don't have to have the same ratings for each one. It can be worth different points. It can have different scales, all sorts of stuff. So this is one, I'll show you what it looks like on the other side. If I click into SpeedGrader, this is one example. I tried to upload a range. So these are some images just to show you what things look like. And I'll just peek at the rubric before I show you more tools. So this is what the rubric looks like. So as I go through, I can view the longer description if I'm like, wait, what am I evaluating? But I can just click on 5 or 0, or if neither of those really satisfies it, if it's somewhere in between, I can just type in 4. So you can really easily click through to assign points. And then if you save that, it totals them and you can add your comment at the bottom. I'm seeing a few questions in the chat here. Is there an archive section, like to save all of your student work? Is that what that question is about?
Yes, it's not to save the student work, it's to save an assignment. Like sometimes I have an assignment and then it's not appropriate for the class at that time. So then I want to move it somewhere where I can still use it again.
Okay, I'll come back to that and show you. Okay. Yeah, your assignments are always there in your Canvas site. You just unpublish it and it should save it, but I can review
when I unpublished it, it still shows up as something that's due though. It's the date.
Okay.
The students still see that they have to do that assignment that I have unpublished. So that's been frustrating because I thought when I turned off that little green check mark and got the circle that was white with the line across it, that meant that it was out of the picture. But I find they're still asking me, they say, well, do I have to have that assignment in? And I said, well, I've deleted that assignment. And anyway, it's been
I would say you could also try deleting the due date.
Yeah, I think you'd have to remove the due date so it doesn't show up on their schedule. But Marilyn, can we come back to that? So
yeah,
we can keep looking at SpeedGrader.
Yeah.
And then Garrick, you're asking, is there an automated way to include a grade deduction for lateness? It's not within the rubric, but I'll show you. It's actually within the grade book. So I can show you how to do that after the SpeedGrader. Let's see. Okay, so just a few more things about SpeedGrader, and we'll come back to some of the assessment. When you're in here, there are a few things that are just neat to show you. This little icon all the way on the left takes you straight to the grade book. If I hover over it, it sees. This little eyeball icon does a powerful thing that you can also control through the grade book, but this is just by the assignment. If you click on it, you have the option to hide grades, which means you can go through, it explains it here. You can go through and do all of your grading and all of your commenting, and then you can choose when you're done to post the grades to students. I find this to be really helpful because sometimes as I'm going through, I need to adjust grades based on other students. Like if you're grading on a curve or you think this one really deserves this, but then you read another one, you're like, oh wait, that's actually really exemplary, it's setting the bar. I don't know, whatever it might be. Or you might want to revise things, proofread, anything like that. So it hides all the grades, and then you can post it at the end when you're done grading. The tricky part is you have to remember to post it. I have definitely gone through, done all my grading, and then my students say, I didn't get my grade. And you're like, oh no, I forgot to post them. So that is an option right there. That's what that little eyeball is.
So how do you post them after you're through then?
Okay, well, I'll do this. I'll click hide, and then we'll do some grading, and I'll show you how to post it. It will be, once you have the grades, it'll be here under posting, or you can do it through the grade book. There are two different ways. This little settings tool also, if you go down to options, it allows you to sort of shuffle your students up and also do anonymous grading. So sort the student list, it always by default does it alphabetically. You could do it by the date they submitted the assignment. So the first ones who submit get the first feedback, if that's something you want to do. By submission status, like which ones need grading and which ones don't. And sometimes doing it by the date they submitted and then hiding the student names is a nice thing to choose, because it allows for anonymous grading. Anonymous to the point that, you know, some of your students might be putting their names in their written essays, so it might not be anonymous, but you could ask them to. I think it's a step towards equitable assessment. So it just says student 1 at this point. Let's see. Another thing that might be neat for you, I'm just going to skip right back to this other tab for a second. This is the assignment. There's this download submissions button next to it. That's how you can bulk download all the student work that's been submitted so far, so that you can have an archive of student work offline. It will title all of the submissions, all the files with the student username too. So it does that work for you. When you're in SpeedGrader, you also have the option, to download individual files here, but it's going to keep the file name in those cases. Okay, so when you're in this view, there are a few things. Let me see if I can get a Word document up. Is this a Word document? I think this one is. Here we go. So you have a bunch of annotation tools here so that you can provide feedback. It's not exactly the same set of tools that you might expect on like Word or Google Docs, but it's kind of closer to actually having a written paper and writing things on it. So there are things like this little pin drop tool where you can sort of click on it and then write a little comment. There's a highlighter tool. So you can highlight lines of text, and then again, you can write a comment. There's a text box tool, so you can just write a generalized comment on a section. You can also supposedly move it around. I'm not the best at this. There we go. There's a strike through. So you have some basic like editing things. Wow, I just did a strike through for all of it. Let's delete that. So you can sort of see, and then there's a brush where you can like draw, and that might be useful for something like, is this a photograph? Here, where you could use that drawing to like, you know, for visual artwork, right? Something like that. So you have a bunch of different tools to use. So you can mark up student work and give sort of on-hand feedback in that way. Does anyone have comments on any of those? Awesome. Yeah, so you have your hands-on feedback tools. You have an ability to download, that's little arrow. allows you to download the annotated homework. So if you've written a lot of comments and you want to be able to download it for a record, you can download that annotated PDF. Probably less useful for pictures, but that is there. And then I think I've pretty much covered the assessment tools over here in terms of how you would provide assessment, both using the rubric, adding in the final grade at the top, comments, attachments. If a student has not done what they need to for the assignment, there's also this reassign assignment button at the bottom. So you can reassign something if a student has not met expectations, and that will allow them to then resubmit it. They'll get a notice, it'll go back on their to-do list, but they have to redo something. Any questions on SpeedGrader? Let me show you. I'm just going to, let me take off the anonymous grading. Here we go.
I have a quick question, follow up there. So if they submitted some, or so say they didn't submit the assignment, and can you hit that assignment tool as a reminder that they didn't submit it, or how does that, is that the student?
No, you can write a comment and say, please submit an assignment. And actually there's a really cool tool in the gradebook. Maybe I'll skip over there and show you that, where you can email students who, I'm just looking for this other assignment, who haven't submitted an assignment yet, and remind them to submit it. Excuse me. So I was just going to look at, right, we did grade this. I was going to show you the student view of what it looks like when they get feedback, because if I go into SpeedGrader, we gave them a C, we used a rubric, I'll write a comment too. You know, it's a pretty awful comment, but I'm going to show you what it looks like if I go into student view. So students submitted, they can see over here that they got a C out of 20 points possible. They can see if it was graded anonymously or not. So students are aware when you use that tool. They can then look at the rubric evaluation and see all of the points that you gave them. They could resubmit it if you asked them to do that. I don't know how to get out of this. Oh, remember that X. Yeah, so they actually get quite a lot of feedback here if they go into the assignment and they look at it. Also, a student can go into their grades tool and they can see a summary. So let's see if I can find the assignment. It was called SpeedGrader. My goodness, I don't know if I see it. There it is, SpeedGrader examples. So they can look across and they can see the grade they got. If they click on this, they can see the rubric. If they click on this, they can see the comment. So they have a summary of it in their grades, and then they can click on various things to get there. So hopefully that's helpful. And you can poke around. You can be, if you want to understand this a little bit more, feel free to make an assignment. Go into that student view, pretend to submit something, give it a grade, see what it looks like. It's a really sort of fluid way that you can test out what Canvas feels like on the student experience. So let me just show you very quickly a few things in the gradebook, and I'll probably revisit this during that next session. But the gradebook you can get to through grades, the main menu here, or when you're in the SpeedGrader, remember there's this ability to jump to it by clicking on that little icon. So the gradebook will show you all of your students, and then I'll have a column for every assignment in your class. I have quite a lot here because I imported this class. It then totals them all up on the right side, and I'll go over the functionality around that, and how those totals work, how it's doing averages. But I wanted to show you a few tricks, like the question that just came up. If for an assignment, you really want to tell these students who haven't turned in anything to turn something in, you can click on these three little dots, and then you'll see this tool called Message Students Who. If you click on it, you can say have not yet submitted, have not been graded, scored more than, scored less than, or students who you reassign. So you have all these different choices. The have not submitted is the one that I have used the most because it's my chance then to say, please submit your work so I can grade it. I guess the tool of like have not yet been graded is a good one because you can just say, sorry, y'all, I've been sick for a week. I'll get your grades out soon if you need to do something like that. Yeah, and they won't see who it's sent to either. They won't know that it's like 10 people in the class haven't turned it in or something. So that's a really nice feature, I thought. The other thing I wanted to show you is this gear icon in the right-hand side, which if you click on has some important settings that you can set up. So the first one is a late policy. So this goes back to Garrick's question to automatically apply a grade for missing submissions. So if you check this, it will automatically give whatever grade you note here for a missing submission. And I have it set up to give 55%, which is an F for anything that's not turned in. And that way, it does two things. It scares students, which may or may not be okay, because even if it's like they missed it by a few minutes, it'll assign an F. I always reassure them at the beginning of the term, you'll get that F, but I will change it if you submit something. Don't worry. So that is the one scary thing about it. But it does something where if they never turn anything in and they get an F, they'll see a more accurate grade reflected at the end. I've definitely heard from classes where faculty are forgetting to give Fs to work that's never turned in. And then the student has this inflated grade because those grades aren't factored into their total. So they think they're getting an A in the class when they haven't turned in any work, when in actuality, they are really not doing as well. So it is kind of a safe thing to do there. The other thing is you can automatically apply a deduction to late submissions. So you can say, I want, 10% automatically reduced for every day that it's late. And I want the lowest possible grade to be this. So you can play around with that and see what it does in terms of late grades. I don't tend to do this because it's a little tricky to take away that for accommodations, since it's sort of across the board, it seems. But that is there if you wanted to use it there.
Right, and it's harder if you're just doing it by the week versus the day.
I know.
Yeah, I just asked that because it seems like in my experience, I might just want to dock a point or something like that and not have it be actually reflected in the other parts of the rubric. That's all.
Nice. Yeah, so I could see that being that would be nice to have like a negative point reduction in the rubric then. Yeah. Was it late, I don't think that's a possibility, but that's a good thing to look into. I'll let you know if I do figure that out.
Thanks.
Yeah, and then this is the grade posting policy too, where you could in the SpeedGrader hide the grades, and here you can also manually post the grades, which essentially hides it until you're ready to post it, which I now remembering I was going to show you. So if you are ready to post grades, if you click on this, it'll have where it's grayed out here, an option to post the grades. Let's go back and see here. I know I hid them. No grades to post because I didn't grade them all. Great. But here it would say post grades. You could do it from this section or from the grade book, actually on the assignment you're ready to post grades for. You click, you scroll down and you say, there it is, post grades. And then it posts it for all of those students and it tells you what it's doing. I can go ahead and post it. Okay, well, that was about everything I was going to show you. I'm happy to answer any other questions you all might have.